Breaking the gray.
Sarah, it's yet again another beautiful day because I get to spend my morning and I guess your evening together. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, lots of sun here in England today, so very good.
I can tell. You have a different glow. When the sun's out, you have a different glow. I have more of a jaundice glow today. I don't know what's going on in this camera. Maybe it's the camera or something, but I feel yellow today. But the sun is not out here. It's cloudy. It's June in California, so where I live, the clouds don't really break up until October. So I like to live your life in California. So Sarah, let's talk. We're on a good path on longevity. We have another amazing guest today. Let's jump into because I want to get interviewing.
Yes, so thank you so much for coming on, Ryan Carter, who's a nutritionist who also is a fellow sun lover, and he's actually, there he is out there in the sun. So thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fabulous. We specifically wanted to talk to you because we've spoken to quite a few people about diet and supplements and various things. But it would be cool to speak to you to find out what is your take specifically on longevity, because there's all kinds of stuff that's going on out there with regards to, very granular looks at specific supplements or even drugs, even we've been speaking about. But what do you think is now at the cutting edge of all this longevity talk?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very conflicting space from both sides of the coin. And then where I like to place myself is like nowhere actually near that coin at all, just because it's so delusional. So again, obviously we've got conventional and sort of like functional alternative viewpoints. And again, there's a bit of in between where they stand and what they're trying to aim at. But again, the premises that I find or conflicting is they're sort of focusing in on looking just at the data that they want to look at, or going down one sort of specific granular view, what you just said, that word earlier, without seeing the overall picture and removing their dogma from the equation, essentially, or the lenses that we should see longevity. So again, longevity, in my view, should be seen as optimal health. It's a byproduct of optimal health. What do we actually want to do with longevity? Again, is it just a number game with age? Again, life is about an experience. How do we want to go out in life, basically? That's only like one certainty that's going to happen out of life, and that is death. So how do we want to go out? And again, that's going to mean different things to different people. It's going to have a different value proposition. And again, some people, that might just be sitting indoors, binging on crap food and watching Netflix. That's the way they want to go out. For them, like it would be like the polar opposite of the stuff that maybe that I would be doing, or that even conventional medicine people would be saying. It doesn't really touch upon their values or identity as a human being on this planet. So again, understanding that viewpoint first, we can actually see different things and what does it mean to different people. But for me, like, longevity is about extracting the most out of your lifestyle. And again, it's nothing to do with like, I want to be like wrinkly and basically bedbound when I'm 110 years old and needing to take 100 supplements to stay alive and breathe. For me, that doesn't really resonate with me. What resonates with me is just like to be the best person I can in the moment. And again, this is sort of the issue and connection, how energy and order works in the human body. Okay. And without energy and the organization of that energy, we're not really going to be perceiving well. We're not going to be creating the essence of life. And again, this is touching upon longevity. And again, it's sort of conflicted with the alternative view, where people sort of bring it home on like protein or muscle building. And again, I say this and I'm fairly muscular. I'm fairly strong. And I even know there's drawbacks to that with longevity. We get ignorant that it's all about building muscle because we see frail, weak people. But again, when we actually look at supercentenarian data, and even looking at dogs as an example, or other wild animals, they're not actually muscular. They're actually kind of obese. And again, there's actually two types of obesity. There's inflammatory obesity, and there's actually like healthy obesity. There's actually not, there's that people that actually like call this out. Like, fat is not like just inflammatory. Fat can actually be a protective mechanism for stem cells. again, when we get older in life, muscles are an expensive tissue to maintain and to have thermodynamically. Now, obviously, when you're young and like maybe in my prime right now, again, I want to be sort of like an alpha male as such. And again, I want to protect and be able to hunt, all these sort of ancestral components. That's me right now in this age. But when I get older, I want to be sort of that elderly person who's that wisdom, who again, who's got a healthy brain and a heart, essentially. Because again, that on an ancestral viewpoint
Yeah,
should be passed down.
Yeah, Ryan, and it's such a great viewpoint, and that's something that I don't think Sarah and I have heard. But yet we know. I think it's context. It's like, do I want to live longer to do nothing and miss more opportunities? You know, it's like, or do I want to live? Do I want to live the best possible life I have in front of me? I think mortality when you get older, you stare mortality like I can start to see mortality. I can see its body parts. When I was younger, I faced death multiple times. And so that's fucking crazy and shocking. And you're like, I'm not going to die at 22. But you know, when you now I've like have a big enough gap that fear of death has now become, I can see death. I can actually see it out there. And sometimes panic sets in. I have a parent who is very afraid of dying, and she's in her 70s, and she cannot live calmly because she's so worried that she's suffering from some disease that's going to kill her because she loves her life so much. But contextually, I don't want to live my life worried about dying all the time. And that's, I think, a problem that I know I deal with. I know my mom deals with too, right?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's like that's on the person, and again, how they see life. Like, again, it's a given. It's a certainty that you're going to die. How you embrace that and take that message and do with it is obviously a factor of how well your brain's working. And again, that leads upon like anxiety and depression, all these kind of things. Now, again, like we get all these like fear-mongering people, or like Brian Johnson as an example. I don't know if you know who he is, but again, like he's a big tech guy and he does all these biohackers. He's like 10 stages worse than Dave Asprey. Again, he looks basically like a walking vampire, pale as anything. Because again, there's some truth in what he's trying to do. He's trying to slow down his metabolism. That has a cost. That cost is basically feeling and thriving, and again, looking good, or even having like a morning erection, all these sort of things. And again, he's trying to hack it to a certain degree. But again, if you really want to slow down your aging process, is slow down your metabolism. The issue with that is that it's got a cost to your quality of life. So again, like libido, being strong, thinking clearly, putting connections together, memory, we're going to see a decrease with that. And again, obviously we can tie that with like thyroid output, so to speak. That's going to walk in hand with how well we're using oxygen in our mitochondria function. But again, it's just like, okay, what are we going to do with that? How's our outlook looking like that? But again, it's kind of interesting because some people and some animals can actually smell death. I don't know if you actually ever been to a hospice or been around old people that are literally like got a few weeks or days left. You can actually smell them. Even animals can smell cancer on the body. So again, it's kind of unique that humans have got these senses of sensing death, essentially. But again, it's just like, how well is our body aware of this? But again, essentially, for me, longevity falls back on how well we're producing energy and what we're doing with this energy. And this comes basically back to our metabolism and the essence of producing energy and water in our system, water in the mitochondria. And as a baby's got unique amounts of fat on it and a unique ratio of water. As we age and get older and burn our candle, essentially, the light basically sort of drops, but our water production essentially sort of declines. And again, this is the essence of how aging occurs, and essentially why we can't really get a tan no more, why we have distorted sleep, because our perception of our reality sort of changes based on our metabolism and how we're structuring this water and interacting with light, which basically has a premise to our DNA, our RNA, and proteins and enzymes and receptors, because they all interact with endogenous and exogenous light, or EMF, in our environment. Okay, so again, that's the take home with longevity, and in like the 30,000 foot view of it. How well are we making energy? and that declines with age. And again, there's all these biochemical steps in functional medicine that they talk about, which is all cool and nice. And again, eating well is part of that picture, but again, it's not explaining how water essentially works in our body.
Well, my thing is also light. I have a red light company, and so I'm totally on board with you with light. But do you then change your focus that way? Because a lot of your posts and your socials are about diet and food. Do you kind of have that as a priority, or you more think the light environment or your just environment generally is that highest priority? And then what you eat is just kind of finessing how much optimization you can get out of your body.
Essentially, so understanding food is basically stored light. It's a barcode of electromagnetic radiation which has been excited from the sun and interacted with the soil. And again, understanding this, again, it is a light story at the end of the day. That's food is a byproduct of the environment. You're the organism in that environment. Basically, you should be replicating that. You should be coherent with that. Your mitochondria literally break down food on the smallest scale and try to make sense out of that. And they produce water as a byproduct from that. Different foods, different environments, different organisms. And that's where personalization comes in. And that's why it's kind of ignorant when you're listening to your guru and he says, this is what I do, or this is what a dietitian eats in a day. It's like complete baloney. It makes no sense. Again, how you extract energy from your environment is going to underpin sort of how well your metabolism or what kind of foods you're going to do well with. For example, it makes no sense to be on a ketogenic diet long term as such, living in the environment I am right now. Although my genetics sort of favor that, being from Northern European descent. But again, at the same time, it makes no sense to consume carbohydrates, maybe even 80% of the year living in the UK. Because again, it's a mismatch signal, essentially. Yeah, again, we're actually talking about the carbons and the hydrogens, the carbohydrates. They're going to differ. And again, your metabolism is interacting with the light, with the circadian rhythm, with photoperiods, i.e. like the time length of light in your environment. And again, your brain is sensing this. Your skin is sensing this. Your microbiome is sensing this. And again, this is where we see studies looking into the microbiome. And again, food doesn't really play a big part of the story, although people like Tim Spector make it out to be. Eating 30 different types of plants a week is absolutely ridiculous, or giving a shit about it is ridiculous. Again, the public need to understand this and think for themselves. We can't just blame Tim Spector because, again, he's a gut specialist. That's all he focuses about, or all his research is about on. He doesn't understand the bigger picture. So again, it doesn't really tie to one or all things. And again, like too much light is a problem as well. Light actually can be seen as a bit of a stressor. UV light is a stressor. Vitamin D is a byproduct of a stressor. UV light can cause DNA damage. The context is that damage a good response or a bad response with you? Is your mitochondria and immune system really working well to handle that response? A bit like training. Building big muscles and getting stronger is fine, but again, can you actually do that? Does it serve a purpose? And again, that red light story is key. Whenever we're outside, we're getting red light. But again, it's the isolated blue light in our modern environment, which is basically causing the problem. And again, that's actually speeding up life. It's actually speeding up cell cycles. Blue light is pro-growth, essentially. Again, that's actually how the increased intensity of blue light in plants, that's actually how they increase their growth and collect a different type of water inside their cell, because it's changing actually like glucose physiology, basically. And obviously we eat that plants and it's sort of having an influence in the growth in our body as well. So again, this is how light essentially influences our longevity picture. But again, it's also the same thing as like too much UV light can actually potentially have an issue there. How efficient we are with all these inputs in the body is the key thing. And again, it's never like just go into the equator and get naked and just stick in the sun. No, that's going to be a bit of a problem. But again, it's the same thing. Too much of a ketogenic diet can be a problem, because again, you're changing your metabolism. You're actually changing how autophagy or apoptosis works with an NAD or NADH signal or a free radical signal to clear out problematic mitochondrial cells. So again, this is the essence, but again, it's sort of muddled because of the modern world, because of medications, because of our belief systems. Because again, diet is now a cult, essentially, where there's like carnivore people saying that, okay, I just went on a carnivore diet and that's the reason why I don't burn. Well, again, there's a little bit of truth in that, but again, you likely changed other parameters in your health. You improved your circadian rhythm. You increased the histidine content of your diet. All these sort of nuances that they don't have any understanding in, but again, they declare to the general public that this is the holy grail, when in fact, again, like humans are omnivorous, and there's a spectrum on that omnivorous sort of scale depending on the environment.
Yeah, for sure. And we are trying to advocate on this show a little bit of sovereignty, actually, in people kind of learning their own thing and doing their own self-experiment, starting actually with moderating circadian biology, then sleep. We kind of tried to do it in a stepwise fashion. But you're right, everyone's at different places in their life, different sexes, different things even going on with menstrual cycles, different skin tones, the whole thing. How do you then approach it? Because do you think there are some fundamentals from a diet point of view, I mean?
Yeah, so the gut and the liver and the brain. But again, I see the human body as a solar panel. I actually believe that the gut is influenced by what happens on the skin and in the eyes, and obviously how the brain perceives that. And then essentially that's what's influencing the microbiome more, or the function of the microbiome or the gut function more. And again, someone who's had exposure to antibiotics, someone whose mum had poor health, thyroid issues, that's going to have an effect on their gut health, essentially, of how that's working. Maybe the mum had a lack of vitamin A in their diet. Maybe they didn't consume enough iodine, as an example. This is going to have a role on that person's enterocytes or gut function, or antibiotic exposure. Again, this is going to be influencing essentially that food picture, or what the recommendation would be, or how I'd view that. But again, it's when there's a lot of quote unquote inflammation or distortion in our environment or chaos in our biology, again, we're going to be reactive. We're going to be fragile. That's when obviously being restricted for a certain period of time is going to be good. You're reducing the noise. You're getting clarity. It's like why I'm wearing these headphones right now and using a program to reduce the noise. Because again, it's making it more clarity for my brain to actually interpret and make sense out of things. That's why carnivore diet works. And that's the essence to it. And again, it's carnivore diet is probably going to be a better diet for a restricted template for gut people, opposed to a ketogenic diet at the start. Inducing a lot of fat into your gut can be problematic. Again, especially if like the liver function working with the brain is not there. And again, it takes time. It takes time to sort of change your enterocytes. But again, the gut and the skin are probably the fastest tissues which basically can be regenerated easier. And again, they turn over. The enterocytes turn over every 72 hours, and the skin cells as well. But something like the brain and the liver or the kidneys or something else, it takes a little bit longer. So again, we can get immediate effects within the gut. We can see immediate effects within our microbiome. It is an easy thing to sort of hack or to look into. Plus, again, within society, it's where a lot of energy and money is put and placed. Again, that's why we are more focused on, okay, cool, I'm on a keto diet and I'm going to stick keto badge of honor as my username on Twitter. Because again, it's very easy and it's talked about. How many diet books are out there? Yet they don't even scratch the surface with like how different changes of hydrogen works within food within the food matrix, or really the whole point of phytonutrients working within our biology. And again, all that anti-aging or longevity thing with fasting.
Yeah, and I think it's what Sarah has talked about a lot. I mean, Look, personalizing this and making it about you, understanding your body. I get confused on diet. I've tried everything. I've had my body respond well to things and my body not respond well to things. But I think I have to trust that too. A lot of this like be tough, break through it kind of thing is like it's my diet, and my diet's become pretty stable as I've gotten older. I eat the same things pretty much every day, and it's kind of been that way for about a decade. And I now notice when I make a significant change, it's pretty impactful, but my body's used to my diet. And I know if I jam too much sugar in it, I'm going to feel like shit. I know if I eat too many, too many carbs late at night, I'm going to feel terrible in the morning. But I wonder is, you know, I want to feel better. I still don't feel great. I don't feel like I have the right diet for myself, but I've just become a little bit stuck in my ways on eating a high protein diet, a low carbohydrate diet, and eating lots of nuts and protein, but not really jamming carbs in my system. And I don't know the right way. I have no idea where to start with the right way either, and to kind of figure out what's right for me.
Well, again, like that makes sense given where you live. You're in America. You're in LA. So again, your brain is perceiving a lot of mixed messages. You're probably perceiving lots of mixed messages online from information. So again, it's a confusing place. Again, maybe you are on the right track with being on a moderate high protein diet with low carbs. But again, if that information and all that history in the mix that we just discussed, are you actually going to adapt well to that? Are you going to actually have the appropriate response that we would expect using like this evolutionary sort of lens? Are you actually able to handle that sort of stress response? Or can you actually utilize gluconeogenesis? Can you actually break down fats? Just the act of eating butter or putting butter in your coffee doesn't mean you're actually utilizing those fats and breaking them down in the mitochondria level. It requires that, like basically like an orchestra, everything to be in tune for that system to, or that way to be working. It's not as simple as that. Okay, if losing fat or being on a high fat diet or having body fat was so easy, why is everyone obese essentially? Because it's hard actually to metabolically utilize fats.
I was thinking maybe the conversation needs to be more, why do you think humans have gone down that road? So I was just thinking the conversation kind of needs to be a level higher. Like, why have humans, have we got so disconnected from all of this that people are totally, like you say, overloaded with information, don't actually have any like intro perception of their body to know what's going on. What is the bigger picture? Because it seems like people are missing the point, focusing on the wrong thing.
100%. Like this is a prime example of like being woke and being unwoke. So the unwoke people essentially, maybe we can classify them as sheeps. They're not taking responsibility of their health, but maybe again they have no perception of what they should actually feel. Maybe they're walking through life with no feelings or no attachment to their body. But again, the people who are woke, they are attached to their body. They're sensing things. They know that something's not right. And then obviously they get in this minefield with all this information. And then obviously there's all these conflicted viewpoints. But again, this comes down to how the human body is thinking. And again, that touches upon like technology, us as a species being so disconnected with the way of us living, being centered around big cities. Again, that looking on a evolutionary lens, that's sort of backwards of how it should work. Again, like longevity is now tied with being outside of a city, where before, maybe 100 years ago, it was about, okay, cool, we've got infectious diseases. Now we got like being close to a doctor in hospitals was an effective way. That sort of backfired now, where obviously the influence of like population density is a detriment to human health. That's why I'm living in Nicaragua with like no one really near to me, and there's no other like Wi-Fi signals than the one I'm using right now. And again, that's causing some damage to my body. But again, I'm doing the best that I can and not like getting scared about anything. Because again, there's no such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as perfection with a diet. It's very hard to have perfection in the modern world, and we have to let go of that and always see it as like doing the best that we can. But again, it gets very conflicted when we have like our personal interests of like muscle building or being like an athlete. Like sports performance is not optimal health. Vanity over your skin is not optimal health. Vanity over like having big breasts and getting attraction from men, that's not optimal health. And again, all these sort of cultural norms that we've sort of been manipulated or deluded to, again, there's always a biological cost. But again, we have to understand that and take that with a pinch of salt of like, how do we interpret that, the ancestral viewpoint of things? Because again, we do live in a modern world. And again, that's when like biohacking does come in, because it makes you aware of these things.
Yeah, we do live in a modern world. Yeah. But it's also how to get back to that.
Well, I think for me speaking, like, I don't expect anyone to live in Nicaragua and do what I do. I don't expect my clients to do this way. So that's why I have to remove my dogma and the way that I do things, or the way that what works for me.
I'll do it, Ryan.
Well, again, it's easiest.
Yeah, well, hey, Ryan, you got a couple of customers, yeah.
But again, well, it's easiest. But again, realistically, if you probably wouldn't do it though. I'm sure there's like responsibilities that you couldn't just like jump on a plane and come to Nicaragua. You couldn't probably do it though. But again, it's just like you got to remove as a clinician, you got to remove your dogma and see what's really applicable in your environment. What can you do for this moment? How can we improve and expand your brain to think better? That's where our change manifests, and it starts with our awareness. What really matters to us? Again, that's personal.
Yes, it's that. I was going to say, we've had people on recently who've done dark retreats and they've done fasting for 10 whole days. People who are kind of trying to get themselves out of those thought modes in sometimes these extreme ways. Because I think, like you say, the wider picture is that as a society, you know, technology is out, you know, we are living with it. There's for most people, that's the reality. It's then how can we get some of that sovereignty back? How can we kind of undo some of the conditioning? I think probably, you know, that's where we're at if we're going at that fundamental level.
Yeah, well, again, I think there is a time and place for extreme measures. Again, extreme is like frowned upon in the conventional model of balance, and having like your balanced plate of carbohydrates, a bit of protein, and your little bit of fat there. It's balance. Like, that's absolutely just moronic to see health on that level. There, again, there's a spectrum. Maybe there's a bit of balance in the summer when like there's abundance of everything. But again, it's very deluded to see a balanced plate of food recommended by a dietitian or nutritionist. Absolutely just dog shit advice. Doesn't work like that. But at the same time, we need to wake up. That takes an extreme approach. And again, those things that you just mentioned, they might have a time and place for someone. They need 10 days of darkness or silence or fasting to actually fill their gut and see like, okay, if I add a bit of Haribo into the mix or KFC, literally I'm going to have diarrhea for 2 days. That's a wake-up call. And again, on my journey, like, I'm not ignorant of the fact that I used to listen to people like Dave Asprey. And again, like, I respect the guy, but again, it's just like he's been like saying the same shit, and I've like surpassed his level of thinking because I think better now. But again, I can see in that moment in time, it was actually a beneficial stepping stone that brought me out of that delusional way of seeing things. And again, of just thinking better, unlearning, relearning continuously, even to this day. It's very important for clinician, but just for anybody out there, to move through life and experience life with an open mind.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, you mentioned something earlier about production of water and your body producing water, and that changes over time. I'm actually curious about that comment because I don't know what that means in terms of what I can actually do to create something in my body to actually do a better job of that. I'm curious where you land on that. Like, what are things we can do to produce more water within our body? I mean, my naivete says, drink a lot of water, and but right, red light. What are other things we can do, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean so again, like, you can see me drinking water. Oh my God, God forbid it's in a plastic cup. Like, you can see I'm drinking water, but again, that's not actually truly hydrating me on an intracellular level. Now, we have sort of some bacteria inside our cells, which we engulfed millions of years ago, and they are basically our bitch. They basically produce the energy and transfer that energy in a form of information to our nucleus, and that's basically how life unfolds. Now, this bitch of a mitochondria, or this bacteria is called a mitochondria, essentially, and it breaks down food byproducts. It uses oxygen to do that. Now, it breaks down food and it produces water. This water is unique. It's not like this water that I'm drinking from a mineral source. It's deuterium depleted water. And again, this is truly interacting with all the enzymes, the DNA, the RNA inside my mitochondria and inside the cell at unique ratio. Now, again, hydrogen is classified as hydrogen and oxygen, water. Now, there's isotopes, which are different types of hydrogen, basically, and there's 3 on this planet. There's protium, which is the one that our body favors, the H+, and there's deuterium, essentially. And again, they're in a unique ratio on this planet, in different ratios depending on latitude or altitude. Okay, so again, they have a big effect on our metabolism and how much water that we can actually make or energy that we can produce. Okay, as we get older, essentially what happens is we collect deuterium in our biology. This slows down energy flow, water production. Okay, now when we're in infrared light or red light, we produce and operate and make more ATP energy. As a result, we make more water, that deuterium depleted water. That's only going to be working so far just by using a red light therapy device. That's why a red light therapy device is not the holy grail. It's just one thing that you can add on to your optimal lifestyle, basically. And again, Sarah will probably agree with me on that. Again, it has enhancing effects, but again, it's not the holy grail. The full spectrum sunlight is going to do that. And again, you can find red light and infrared light in morning sunlight. But with that said, this is increasing our water production and hydrating inside the cell. And again, life happens when it's hydrated. Again, look at all the life form and plant growth in a desert. It doesn't happen. There's less magnetism occurring there. Things don't grow well there. There's not abundance there. So this is sort of the analogy to take home with. Do you want to be like a tropical rainforest where I am? Or do you want to be like a Sahara desert? That's how we see like how our proteins and DNA working, basically. And again, the junk food, the seed oils, they all contribute to the deuterium load in our body. Eating carbohydrates out of season contributes to this load. It's a mix match. There's no problem with eating carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not bad, but again, there's physics or biophysics at play which set the tone, not based on dietitian or nutritionist dogma of a balanced meal, because it's absolutely dog shit advice, because they don't understand the periodic table or the essence of life on this planet. I mean, do you get that? So the take home is get your ass outside in the morning, get your clothes off, essentially, or to a certain degree, how much you can get away with without your neighbors calling the police. And again, I call it skin in the game and downloading. You're downloading information, but you're actually making energy in the human body. Photons from the sun only interact with electrons in your body. As a result of this, you're creating ATP and water. And again, that is pro-life. That's longevity in a nutshell. As you age, your skin cells change. You have more inability of doing this. You become less efficient. Okay? As a baby or as a young person, you don't need to spend as much time in the sun. That's why vitamin D synthesis on the skin is a problem in elderly people. They need to spend more time in the sun. That's also the case with people with more melanin, people from this environment. They need to spend more time in the sun because they've got a bit better protection or melanin on their skin. Same with me. I'm fairly tanned. My response to the sun is going to be very different with Sarah's, who's in the UK. Sarah wouldn't do well if basically she came out here tomorrow in Nicaragua. So again, just think about it. Rewind. Ancestrally, we would have been outside, ancestry would have been in some interaction with the sun. And again, it's a modern way of seeing sun exposure by sitting on basically a sun lounger after going on a holiday, or traveling on a plane like 4 hours to be in Greece and then sit on a bed in the sun. That's a moronic way of seeing sun exposure, or saying like the sun causes damage to that dysfunctional lifestyle or way of using sunlight. And again, most people here, endogenous people here, they don't spend much time in the sun when it's hot. No wild animal out here, apart from a reptile, spends time in like sunlight exposure in the midday from like 11 till 3, because it's inefficient. It will dehydrate you even more. You don't need that stimulus all the time. And again, this is where like the sunlight or sun causes damage literature is just basically another minefield. And it's actually probably worse than the nutritional field as well, because again, it's laced with pharmaceuticals, with or dermatologists who like sun cream and all this kind of shit that you have no clue about how to interpret like PubMed studies, because it's so conflicted. It's a minefield. Like birth control. How many females are on birth control? That changes your reaction in the sunlight. How many people on statins? That changes your reaction to sunlight. How many people on medications? Like that in itself is influencing your liver enzymes, which again is actually influencing how you're going to transform that provitamin D to the active form as well. And again, most people are not metabolically healthy. Like I said,
whether you're wearing glasses.
Yeah, exactly. And again, most people are not waking up with sunrise. Most people are waking up looking at social media. That's blue light. That's insulting their brain, insulting their skin on their face.
Yeah.
And it's telling them it's midday.
You can point wherever you want. Don't point at me, Sarah. I'm looking at my fantasy baseball scores right now. It's the season, so that's typically what I'm doing. But to that point, Sarah, and you've talked a lot about this, about grounding, about actually like getting outside and getting into that natural environment and getting your feet there. I do wonder, Ryan, we've talked to a lot of supplement specialists as well. I imagine the supplements have to be personalized. I have stopped taking most supplements because I don't know which ones were doing what, and I was just feeling bloated and inflamed, and I just said I'm stopping all of it until I can figure it out. But I'm curious, are you taking supplements?
That's a good question, Russ.
Yeah, good question. At the moment, I'm taking some gelatin powder, and that's just found in like the supermarket here. So making Jello. I don't take. So I make my own magnesium, basically. So again, I make magnesium bicarbonate. And again, I do take like things like spirulina sometimes.
How do you make it then?
The magnesium, I mean, there's a recipe on my website. So you have to use.
How do you make the magnesium?
So you have to get magnesium hydroxide, and basically you add it to like a carbonated water, and then you shake it, and it diffuses, and the transfer, and you get magnesium bicarbonate. I mean, there's a recipe on my website. But again, and spirulina. But again, the healthier you are, the less supplements you need. That's how it works. The more efficient you are, the more conservative you are of your nutrients. Everything else is like clockwork. So again, it is again, supplement sellers or people who sell supplements or promote supplements, there's a half truth there. Okay. Now, what's really in that supplement? Like I said, how's that been manufactured? Is that from a GMO source? Again, is it got deuterium in? Again, nature doesn't really make mistakes. Again, yeah, there is some issues with our environment and the way we live. And again, there is a time and place for some supplements on your journey. But again, it comes down to personalization, looking at SNP variants potentially, looking at where you are, looking at if there's actually something suppressing your system. Do you need a jolt in your system to bring you back, to spark some life, to give you a free radical signal? But again, we don't want to be taking antioxidants. Okay? But again, that's sort of like the problem with longevity, is that to live life, you need to use oxidation, like redox reactions. Again, you can't be a snowflake. You need to embrace life, and that creates oxidation. It's like having skin in a game. To make vitamin D, again, depending on how healthy you are, it's going to cause maybe a little bit of sun damage, potentially to a potential degree. But again, maybe your biology needs that vitamin D or that UVA to get you out of a hole. So again, this is how we see life. Nothing is good or bad. It's just dependent on that sort of person or what you're trying to get out of the experience, the value essentially.
Yeah. What's your maybe because we're coming to the end now. So what would you say? I mean, I kind of got your overall message actually, Ryan. I think it's pretty clear that people need to take their own responsibility and just get outside. But what would you leave people with if you're kind of having your top tip for specifically people who are looking to age better? I'm not saying age a long time, but age optimally.
So again, everything on life happens on timing. So again, if you're getting skin in the game, downloading in the morning, everything is functionally more thermodynamic efficient. So you're wasting less proteins. You don't need to go on a high protein diet ironically, because again, all these translational modifications are happening on time like clockwork. We're not wasting proteins away on things or producing things or repairing things. That's again the be all and end all is circadian rhythm. Again, the other things with longevity or aging better were to be extreme zero tolerance for blue light. And again, it's a whole thing, like things that you can do that you might have mentioned before, using red light devices to augment that, putting things on your laptop or on your phone to reduce that blue light intensity, getting light bulbs around your house, salt lamps, candles at nighttime, turning down the brightness on phones, avoiding it in young people at nighttime, especially. But again, these are going to be enhancing your biology, because again, on the longevity thing, people really do care about their exterior. And again, the skin is very delicate, and blue light is toxic to the skin. Essentially, it's not good in isolation. And again, I think you got the message about seasonal eating. Again, you don't need to read a diet book about what to eat. You'll basically, and again, I've read so many diet books. Again, if diet or the ideology was like correct, it would have fixed it by now. Yet there's like 500 diet books published every single year, because it's just hogsshit advice, basically. It's just bullshit. You don't need to listen to these people. You need to go to the farmer's market. You don't need to listen to a dietitian say, this is what I eat in a day, or this is what's in my fridge. Screw that crap. Go to the farmer's market and see what's available. That's really what you should be eating within reason. And again, maybe there is some 80-20 between like function of foods, i.e. maybe eating a watermelon if your goal is performance, because that's going to increase nitric oxide synthase activity as an example. So again, having a bit 80-20 with functional foods, but again, ideally whole foods. And again, there's nothing wrong. If you live in the UK and you want a bit of dark quality chocolate, go for it. As an example, you should be healthy enough to handle that piece of chocolate. It shouldn't topple you over. And if it does, that's a clear sign that your health is more like worse than it actually is. And it's not really about the food, it's about you.
Got it. Well, I'm so glad, Ryan, that we got a chance to speak, because we started talking about diet and we covered a lot of the light stuff. So it's always great to reiterate that message. So thank you so much for coming on from your tropical paradise.
Yeah, I mean, another take home of like two foods that would be good for like longevity would be, again, I'm not a big fiber person, but again, vegetables do have a role in clearing out the trash of the body within the gut. So again, you can replicate that with something like an activated charcoal or spirulina. It's actually binding all the sort of toxic crap endogenously or exogenously found in the body and taking it out. Additionally, seafood would be a key longevity food to add in. Again, it actually is influencing your immune cells around your whole body. And again, with neurotransmitters, with hormones, everything basically, it's key. It really is key, even with stem cell production. And again, seasonal fish or seafood. So that two food take homes.
Good. Sounds good to me. Chocolate and seafood. Thank you so much, Ryan. So Ryan, what are you doing right now? Are you doing coaching, or what is your kind of modality right now? Where can people find you?
Online, on my website. So basically I coach clients around the world, online, sometimes in person. I'll be in London actually in 2 weeks' time, speaking at the Health Optimization Summit. So maybe we'll meet up there. But again, typically my base is Nicaragua. I'm not really like floating around anymore. Nicaragua is essentially my base, just because it's given me like a decentralized platform to be and to live and thrive at. And that's it, really.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, well, I'll look forward to meeting you in London. That will be cool. I can show you my device if you haven't hopped out. As soon as
I
you've
actually
done your
remember.
talk.
I actually remember it now. That's where I remember you from. It's from the Biohackers Summit in Helsinki, and you actually had the flex beam there. And I think you were talking to me about it, and I wasn't really sold upon it. I believe. I think I said something about like I can't remember what I said or what I thought about the product, and maybe my views sort of changed or could change now. But again, I do remember that you talking about the product, and actually you were talking
Well,
on stage.
I have my own company now. That's not that one.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Maybe
I have my own product now, so I'll sell you on that, Ryan, in London.
Please do.
I'll sell you on that one. It's better.
Well, again,
much better.
Well, educate.
Much better.
Yeah. Well, educate me on that one. So again, I'm always open. I've got an open mind and like always learning.
I will.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll love it. It's gut brain. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on. It was really lovely to see you. I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Thank you. Pleasure. Breaking the grey.